This time, we will explain the requirements for permits and licenses when establishing a company for foreigners, including people, offices, things, and money. What types of industries are most often started by foreigners? As expected, international trade and wholesale are at the top of the list, but foreigners are starting businesses in a variety of industries. In this video, we explain these industries, whether you need a license or permit to start your business, and what requirements you need to meet to get a license or permit. There are three main requirements for obtaining licenses and permits to establish a company. The first is the requirement to allocate people, that is, qualified personnel and managers necessary to carry out the work. The second requirement is to prepare the physical space and things necessary for the business, such as an office, store, facilities, and equipment. The third requirement is money, that is, meeting the capital and financial conditions necessary to operate the business stably and continuously. After meeting all these requirements, you must apply to the government and obtain licenses before you can start business. Now, let's take a look at what these requirements are for each industry mentioned earlier. First, what about international trade and wholesale businesses, which are common among foreign entrepreneurs? This may seem surprising, but no special permits or licenses are required. You will probably need a warehouse for your products to carry out your business. However, some items, such as medicines, cosmetics, alcohol, and others, may require permits or qualifications, and there may be restrictions on import and export, so it is essential to check in advance. Next is retail. There are many things to sell, but generally no licenses or permits are required. When selling food, a notification is required and a food safety manager must be assigned. You will also need a store or warehouse to sell your products. Please note that some items may require a license. For example, a second-hand goods dealer license is required to handle second-hand goods, and food items such as meat and seafood require a license, so please be aware of this. Now, what about restaurants? Restaurants need a restaurant business license. Specifically, they need to appoint a food safety supervisor and a fire prevention manager depending on the number of seats, prepare the store and cooking facilities, and then obtain a license. In addition, if your business operates late at night or primarily serves alcohol, you will need to submit a notification of the start of late-night business for restaurants serving alcohol. Next, let's look at the manufacturing business. Manufacturing businesses require licenses depending on the product, such as food and medicine. In the case of pharmaceuticals, etc., it is necessary to assign pharmacists, etc. Production and storage facilities are also required. Regarding food, the industries and items that require permission or notification are specified in detail. In addition, a manufacturing permit alone does not allow sales. A sales permit is required before shipping to the market. What about information and communications and IT-related businesses, where relatively many foreigners start businesses? No permits or licenses are required for these. Please note that if your project involves contracting for telecommunications work over a certain scale, a construction business license will be required.
Let's take a break here for some trivia. It is often said that there are more than 10,000 licenses and permits in Japan, but is this true? It is true that there are many, but it does not mean that there are more than 10,000 permits and licenses. Among the statistical figures on permits and licenses released by the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications in the past, the number of articles, sections of laws and regulations that serve as the basis for licenses was approximately over 15,000, so it is believed that the number of permits, licenses or documents is now said to be more than 10,000. Please make sure you understand this information correctly.
Now, let's continue and look at the construction business. Construction work requires a construction business license. It is necessary to appoint a management officer and full-time engineers, and to meet certain equity and capital requirements. Next is the transportation business. The transportation business requires a general motor truck transportation business license. The requirements are specified in detail, including not only an operations manager but also more than 5 drivers and more than 5 vehicles. If you are running a transportation business using a K-car, you will need to file a notification for a light motor vehicle transportation business. Next is the travel business. Travel businesses require travel business registration. What is important to note is that the standard asset amount is divided into detailed categories according to the scope of services. In addition, when a company is established, the standard asset amount is the amount obtained by subtracting deferred assets, contributions, and other items from the capital, so the capital must be set at an amount that takes this into account. In addition, there is no requirement for a standard asset amount for travel agent business or travel service provision business. Please note that many of the commonly referred to travel agencies fall under the travel business category here, and are subject to the standard asset amount requirement. Finally, let's look at the real estate business. Regarding the real estate business, it depends on whether it falls under the category of buying and selling land and buildings, or acting as an intermediary or agent for such purchases and sales, or acting as an intermediary or agent for rentals, etc. If applicable, you will need to obtain a real estate brokerage license, appoint a real estate transaction specialist, and pay a security deposit, etc. Please note that if you invest in Japanese real estate and earn income by renting and managing your own real estate, for example, this does not meet the above conditions and no licenses are required. It can be difficult to determine whether or not a job falls under the real estate brokerage business, but we would like to provide a separate opportunity to explain this, including how to obtain a visa for the real estate business. Let's look at some other industries as well. Hotels, inns, and private lodgings are characterized by the fact that detailed conditions are set for location, area, facilities, etc. In some areas, these restrictions may be relaxed or abolished due to special zone private lodgings. In addition, when it comes to paid employment placement and temporary worker dispatching, you need to pay attention to the office requirements as well as the standard asset amount and cash on hand. Furthermore, in some cases, such as financial instruments businesses, the capital requirements can be quite high, so we recommend that you thoroughly research what requirements are in place for the business you want to start. Here is a summary and some points to note. First of all, when obtaining a business manager visa, it is important to consider not only the license requirements, but also the requirements for the business manager visa. Please also note that you will need to apply for the visa after obtaining the permit. Next, regarding capital requirements, there are various requirements other than capital stock, such as standard asset amount, equity capital, cash and deposit amount, etc., depending on the industry. In anticipation of these, it is necessary to set capital with a margin. Also, pay attention to the purpose of the business when registering the company. Be sure to correctly describe the main business for which you will obtain licenses and permits. It is also advisable to include the businesses you plan to carry out and the purpose in advance. Please prepare and decide on the company's location, capital, business purpose, etc., with the acquisition of licenses and business manager visa in mind. If you later relocate, increase capital, or change the purpose of your business, additional registration costs and effort will be required. Also, please note that many of the requirements for people introduced this time can be met even if managers do not meet them by hiring qualified people or having them undergo training. Furthermore, the review period for permits and licenses, from application to issuance, can range from a few weeks at the earliest to more than a few months at the latest, so it is important to plan accordingly. Finally, even if you receive a license or permit, it will generally require renewal after a few years. Check the renewal criteria and try to operate your business in a way that satisfies them. Thank you for watching. If you are considering establishing a company or applying for a visa, please contact Aroba Soken. This video was presented by Aroba Soken. For consultations and orders regarding company establishment, visa application, and permits and licenses, please contact us from the description.